really personal ways to share the gospel and impersonal. Personal ways to share the gospel is in relationship with people. Impersonal ways are showing the gospel message through TV, through bumper stickers, through billboards, through radio shows. Now those are important ways, but these days people are becoming a little more immune, I'd say, to impersonal methods. And what the church is discovering is most people are coming to know the Lord through their relationships with Christians. So that's the neat tool that you guys have, a neat way that the Lord can use you in expanding His kingdom. People don't want to talk about personal matters, especially spiritual issues, with just anyone. They want to confide in a faithful friend. You know, if you've lost someone that you love that was very dear to you, you want to talk to people that know you, that love you, that care about you, versus talking to a stranger on the street about it. Fourthly, relationship evangelism is verbal. It involves more than just building friendships. For people to hear the gospel and understand the gospel, they've got to hear it from your lips. They've got to hear it through your story, and they've got to hear the gospel message from you. Romans 10:14 says, How can they believe in one whom they've not heard? And how can they hear without someone teaching it to them? For people to really understand the gospel message, we've got to explain it to them. Now, fifthly, it's process-oriented. Okay? It's process-oriented. In forming a relationship and leading up to the time where you share the gospel with people, it takes time. It takes time for people to understand the message, believe in it, and act on it. Seldom do people hear the gospel for the first time and commit to it. Barna says that it takes a non-believer about 7 times on average to hear the gospel before it clicks, before they make that commitment to Christ. So they may hear a television pastor on TV preach about it. You know, a neighbor may share it with them. You know, their aunt may bring them to an Easter production. You know, then a coworker shares the gospel with them. Then they pick up a tract and hear it, or, you know, they see in a billboard, Jesus loves you. And then finally, when their brother or sister, let's say, shares it with them, boom, that's when it comes. Usually, it's a process. Sixth thing is it's team-oriented. As I said before, as 6 is team-oriented. It's a process. And usually several people are involved in the process before that person makes that commitment. So what's neat is that we don't have to feel that as a single person that we carry the full burden of leading someone to Christ. Chances are that we'll share it with them, they'll hear it on TV, they'll read about it somewhere else, someone else will share it with them, they'll hear a presentation after work or something, and then someone else shares it with them. It usually is with several people. Now, I want to read you a little quote. This is by Cliff Netschke. He is an outdoor evangelist. He goes around and travels and does evangelism. He says, a person's coming to Christ is like a chain with many links. There's a first link, middle links, and then a last link. There are many influences and conversations that precede a person's decision to convert to Christ. I know the joy of being the first link at times, the middle link usually, and occasionally the last link. He has called me to be faithful and just love all people. Now, 7th is we need to put others first. We need to put others first. People will not care what you have to say until they know you care. Now, people won't care what you have to say until they know that you care. We need to intentionally get to know others first. We need to get to know their interests, hobbies, schedules, opinions, backgrounds, stories, answer their questions, address their doubts, their frustrations, their fears, and assess their openness. Getting to know them first will earn us the right to share about ourselves, which as Christians, Christianity is a major part of our lives, which will steer us eventually to talk to them about spiritual matters. Okay? The next thing I want to talk about is how to intentionally build relationships with non-believers. First of all, you can form relationships with people that you already know. Families, neighbors, friends, work associates. Focus on those people who are so close to you already. And a suggestion is to invite them into activities that you're already doing. This Sunday, the Super Bowl's coming. Probably most of us will be in Super Bowl parties. It's real easy if you have a non-believing neighbor to say, hey, Joe, are you looking for someone to watch the Super Bowl with? I'm getting together with a bunch of friends. Come with me. We're going to have pizza, snacks, hot wings, nachos, the whole works. And we're going to watch the Giants win. And spend time just socializing with them first so that they can see Christ in you. Secondly, you can form relationships with people who you used to know. People like schoolmates, former work associates, previous neighbors or friends. You can renew relationships with non-believers that you have grown apart with just over time. Many of us have moved from different places and we've made new friends, and certain old acquaintances, just due to the passing of time, just kind of drift out of memory a little bit. Most people are very, very open to renewing friendships, even if it's been a long time. An example from my life is Christmas time. I called the Meskies, and the Meskies is a family that lived next to me as I was growing up, way back in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it had been several years since I've contacted them, and they're non-Christians. And they were so happy to hear from me and so happy to hear that I'm serving here and what God is doing in my life. And, we're going to be talking now probably every couple weeks now. And pray for that relationship. But even though it had been years, they were so happy to hear from me. And I was a stinker when I was a kid, believe me. So they were just happy to hear that something needed happened in my life. So, Okay, number 3 is direct efforts toward people who you want to know. People who you would like to know. People in health clubs, civic groups, community organizations, sports leagues. Those kind of people who are influential people out there. And maybe with some of the businesses that you're in, some of the work that you do, it's kind of easy to connect with influential people. There's a term out there in Christianity called strategic consumerism. It's when you make an intentional effort to go to the same restaurant, same gas station, or store to get to know people who work there. Now, my family shops at Walmart. We hang out there. It's like a third home for us. So there are certain cashiers who are there a lot, certain stock people who are there a lot, who I purposely go in their line to kind of continue the conversation with them. Caroline loves the Starbucks here on 24 Road. She's actually shared the gospel with 2 different employees there, just through her getting to know them. Photography is one of my hobbies, so I'm getting to know the photo people at Sam's Club very well. So pray for those relationships that are developing. But you can purposely get to know certain people in businesses where you frequent. Okay, what I'm going to do now is as I'm talking, I'm going to show you some dramas which Willow Creek has done to illustrate some of the points I'm talking about here. So just sit back and enjoy this little clip here.
How long have we been sitting here? 20 minutes? Half hour?
5 minutes.
No.
Yes.
Oh, it has to be longer than that. Why can't we come up with anything?
I don't know, but I don't want to go back to the park director with nothing. Sorry, sir, but Michelle and I, we are just volunteers. Sorry we can come up with any ideas for the fundraiser banquet.
Didn't you say you already had some ideas for the decorations?
Oh, no, not really. They're just rough ideas. I was basically doodling.
Come on, let me see. Maybe it'll spark some ideas.
Okay, but Promise not to laugh.
I'm not going to laugh. Let me see. Terry, these are incredible. Wow, I never would have thought of using the space that way.
Seriously, you like it? We don't have to use any of these ideas. I didn't think any of them were that good. Then again, that's how I usually feel.
What do you mean?
Sometimes I'm just not very confident in my ideas or myself.
Really? That's hard to believe. I mean, you're so good at this. I feel that way a lot of times, but you?
Well, I guess I worry that people won't get me or accept me. I've always been the creative type, and for most people, that is not a good thing.
So you end up second guessing yourself about everything, right?
Totally.
I'm with you. I feel the same way a lot of the times. It's not easy for me, but I try to remind myself that it's not always as important what everybody else thinks about me. It's more important what God thinks about me, how He feels about me.
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, what about you? Have you ever thought about God from that perspective?
What do you mean?
Well, I was wondering if you ever thought about what God thinks about us, about you.
I have wondered about God before, especially when I was little. You know, I didn't go to church much.
That's a little segue to what we'll be going into now, is how to start spiritual conversations with people. You can see with these two young ladies here how the Christian kind of eased into that conversation, how the opportunity opened up right away for it. Okay? Talking about starting spiritual conversations, you know, this may happen minutes into a relationship with someone, or it could take years to get to that point with someone. It all depends on the person who you're reaching out to. In that timing to begin spiritual conversations, it's always important to measure someone's readiness, where you think they are. Certain people will be very upfront and just say, I can't stand religion, I can't stand Christianity, I don't even want to go there. And they're pretty upfront about it. They hear you're a Christian and wham, they'll lay that right on. That may take a little longer to get to spiritual conversation or relationship like that. Now in this situation, the non-Christian girl, she was open. You know, and we're going to continue their story as we go on tonight, but the door was open pretty early, and these two girls were working on a parks project together for the city, and they were together for that reason, and the door opened pretty quick because this girl was open. Okay? As conversations become more personal, whether it's with a neighbor, friend, family, or whatever, we have the opportunity to take a risk by asking or revealing something of a more spiritual nature. If they are ready to talk about spiritual matters, meaning the non-Christians, then you can take the discussion to a deeper level. If not, then you can move back to a safer level just for that time and kind of continue to drop little hints here and there. Okay? I'm going to talk about three main methods to start spiritual conversations. First of all is the very direct method. Okay? The direct method. Now, it typically takes the form of a question or a statement. And here's some examples. Do you ever think about spiritual matters? That's a good question because most Americans are looking to go on a spiritual journey. The word spirituality is one that's very openly used in our postmodern culture right now. Where do you think you are on your spiritual journey? Bill Hybels uses this line: if you ever would like to know the difference between religion and Christianity, just let me know. These kind of questions or statements, and you can make them up according to what works well for you, but it helps you see where they are spiritually, whether they're open or closed. It helps you see, hey, can I go deeper here, or do I need to take a step back? Then secondly, there's the indirect method. Okay? It's where you can use everyday topics such as hobbies, music, sports, struggles that you're both facing, and put a spiritual twist on it. Okay? Tonight, the new season of Lost is premiering. How many of you have ever seen the TV show Lost? Okay, cool. All right, there's some fans out there. All right, good. I'm recording it right now, so I'm looking forward to seeing it later tonight. But it's a psychological thriller, really. I think that's the best title to put on it. It's a show about a plane that's crashed, and these people are stuck on this island somewhere near the Bermuda Triangle, and there's all these weird things going on there. I had a conversation similar to this with my neighbor. She's a huge Lost fan too, and she was just sitting out on her porch having a cigarette, and she knows I'm a Lost fan, so we were talking about it, and I was kind of sensing where she is, and I asked, well, if you were to be in a plane crash, what would you do? I mean, the thought of possibly dying in a plane crash, or even survive, how would you handle that? And she's like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure how I would do that. And then I got a little more, into the show that, if you were on an island like that, trying to survive, how would you handle it? And she said, well, it would be scary, and it would be, all right. And I said, where do you think you'd go if you would die tonight? And she's like, well, I really don't know. I'm kind of searching for that right now. So, and I kind of let things end right there because, I'll have some time with her. We happen to be outside a lot at the same time, and Caroline's working on her too. But through that, we know that she is kind of open to start hearing a little more. So we'll take those cues and we'll find creative ways to bring it up, as we continue to get to know Brooke. So, thirdly is the invitational method. It's when you invite a non-believer to a Christian event. Again, too, if your small group's doing a Super Bowl party, it's a real easy thing to invite them to that. Our whole church is doing Share Fest weekend. I'll explain that a little more later, but it's where we're going to go out and do a whole bunch of community projects as a church. Well, if you have a neighbor who's a plumber, you can say, hey, my small group is going to go work to remodel this house. Do you want to come with us and redo the plumbing? Most people out there, even if they aren't Christians, are looking for ways to make a difference, to help other people. And to get them involved with a cool thing like ShareFest, that's the type of thing where they can work on projects with Christians that get influenced that way. And it's a good way to introduce them and bring them into spiritual conversations. Now, if you do something like this, a couple suggestions is pick them up and bring them to the event. Don't just say, hey, meet me at Canyon View Vineyard Church and, we'll try to get to this work project together. Pick them up. Plan to do something before or after the event. Just to spend some more time getting to know them. That's often times where some spiritual questions come up. Okay? Now I want to show a new drama here.